Hi, I'm retired NYPD Detective Vic Ferrari, and welcome to NYPD Through the Looking Glass podcast, where you'll get unique insight into the New York City Police Department. Before we get started, I encourage you to check out my Amazon author page, where you'll find my series of behind-the-scenes NYPD books. They're $10 paperback, $2.99 ebook download, including my latest and greatest NYPD Laughing in the Line of Duty. Today's guest has a fascinating past. Tess Korth worked at a federal correctional institute at Dublin, California for a quarter century. She worked her way from corrections officer to a unit manager, supervising a staff of over 300 female inmates. Towards the end of her career, she discovered some shocking, inappropriate behavior between her coworkers and female inmates that led to a well-publicized scandal that resulted in the arrest and convictions of several correction officers, including the warden of the prison. I'd like to welcome Tess Korth to the show. How you doing, Tess?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great, but we have a lot to unpack here. And before we get to the fireworks, and there are some fireworks, could you please tell our listeners a little about yourself and how you got into the Department of Corrections?
I started straight out of college. At that time, I think you need a college degree now anyway, or straight from the military. But it was just a foot in the door for a federal job. And I figured, let me just get in that way and then I'll move around to a different agency. But then when I started, there were so many different, it's like a little city once you get in the prison, so many different jobs that you can do that I just stayed there. I just got stuck.
So it was like a civil service exam, right? You had to pass the civil service exam for the federal government.
No, no. At that time, there was nothing. They don't do psychological tests. They don't do, basically, you just need to be a warm body, pass the little urine test, and that's it.
Has
That
that
was it.
changed in 25 years?
Pretty much no. I'm told that they still don't have a psychological test, which they need one. They never sent anybody for any kind of training during COVID. So they just took you off the street or from the military and threw you right on the compound and said, go to work. And that was crazy, crazy,
Did
crazy.
did you have to go through a corrections academy?
We did, yes. So after probably a few months of working, like running the units and working with the inmates. Then they finally sent us to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Georgia, and
Okay.
we do 3 weeks of training, which firearms, physical training, and at that time, I think it was a keto training, and if we didn't pass those three things, then we would get fired. We They wouldn't hire us, but they don't do those anymore. Um, there's no keto. It's basically they just show you how to get away from things, how to defend yourself. If somebody's choking you, how to get out of that. So more useful things. Um, the physical agility, I could still pass it. I mean, it's so easy. It's so easy. It's ridiculous. Um, and then the firearms, they've made it easier. It was a lot harder when I was younger, but they've dumbed it down. So you're closer to the target and range that we had to do. So basically, we joke about it because every year we would have to qualify. It's like, damn, we can just throw the gun at the inmate instead of shooting. You're so close. So, they've made everything easier.
I'm guessing that it's difficult to get people to take the job.
Yeah, it
Therefore,
is.
they make it easier to get on the job, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everyone complains about how low the pay is and blah, blah, blah. But the job, at least where we were in Dublin, and we're the highest paid prison because of the cost of living, and I'll probably get flack for this, the job is so easy. I mean, it's so easy. Oh, what's to complain about, really? They're not running to body alarms. It's not like a penitentiary. It's basically they sit there and do nothing, and
That
they
that
get
that.
pretty good pay.
Well, that's what I was going
Uh,
to ask you. Can you explain because to put it into perspective, can you explain like the different levels of security at the Federal Bureau of Prisons?
there are camps, which is minimum security. We had a camp there. Those are inmates that can come and go. They can leave because they don't need to be inside a fence. And we're on a military base, and most camps are, actually, all camps are. And they can go work in other buildings, like, down the street, still on the military base. And they can be gone for 2 hours without supervision. So, they don't need as much supervision, and that's a camp. The camp usually only has one officer working there, and they stay in the camp, and it's super easy. They don't they don't really do anything. Um, inside the gates, inside the prison, is a low security facility. That's FCI. Um, Female prisons only have camps and low security. So it's kind of deceiving. You would think, oh, well, they're low security, blah, blah, blah. But in the female prisons, you have everybody in a low security. So you will have like fraud inmates in there, and you will have inmates in there that have chopped people's heads off. So they're all mixed together because there's no other facility that house females. They're all thrown together.
So it sounds because there's a lower female population, they don't want to put, there's not enough of them to dedicate to a separate building or a separate facility to have the real dangerous ones. It wouldn't be cost effective, so they kind of throw them in with everybody else and call it a low.
No, I think it's just that they think of females as different. I think they just have that stereotype of females that, oh, they're not going to do anything. They're all different. They're fine. Because especially towards the end of when I was there, they were getting some nasty inmates in there. The younger ones, they were violent, 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 and they were going after, the younger ones. They were getting, or the older ones. They were getting um, a lot of drugs in. There was just a lot of stuff going on, and really, they should have been at different facilities than the ones that had been there for a long time. So I don't know that they needed to have higher security than some of the other ones. But they're female, so they don't think females do anything. It's just one of their dumb BOP way of thinking. But there's plenty of females. They only have, I think, five female, well, now four female prisons throughout the whole United States. So, they need to build some more federal prisons for females, or they need to reevaluate who's in there and start letting some out. Because some of them that are in there are really stupid kind of crimes. And it's like, okay, they've done enough time, or they're really old. Do they need to be here? I mean, come on. And then there's medium security inmates. Those are men that are in a little bit of a more secure facility. They would have towers, and basically they would have towers, and they would be still kind of moving around like the FCI would. So they're free to move. It looks like a college campus, but the difference is they have the gun towers just to keep extra sure that they're being good. And then the penitentiaries are like the high security ones. Um, and they are more controlled. They're inside, they have towers. They have the OSP like we did, which is the outside patrol, the vehicles going around with the guns. Yeah, they're just, and those are the ones, I don't know how people can work at those, that you're running all day long to fights. I mean, they have body alarms like all day. It's like, how do you get your work done? So, And that's where we got a lot of transfers from a lot of officers transferred from penitentiaries into our prison. And we got a lot of problems when that started happening because they treat the inmates completely different. They treated them like male inmates that were in penitentiaries.
Yeah, dealing with lifers from the Aryan Brotherhood at Leavenworth or Marion, and now they're dealing with a bunch of females at a low. It's a different.
You have to treat female inmates a whole different way, whole different way. You can't scream at them. You can't call them bitches. You can't do that because it triggers them. They 95% of them have been sexually abused or assaulted at some time in their life. So when they have somebody screaming at them in their face and calling them a bitch and talking to them like that, it just triggers them. So they didn't care. You try to explain that to an officer that comes from a penitentiary, and they're like, "You're an inmate." It's like, what's the number one thing they teach you when you get hired? You're not here to punish them.
Right, they've
They're
already
being
been punished.
punished. They've been punished. You just treat them like normal. Good God. But they didn't get it.
In a female prison, how rampant is smuggling cell phones and drugs? I mean, does it go on a lot because it is a low?
It happens. It happens. It happens with officers. It turns out. I was thinking that it didn't, but I found out a lot of stuff after the fact, sitting through the warden, sitting through his trial. I mean, I knew stuff was coming in. I didn't realize how much of it was coming in. And now a lot of stuff is coming in through drones. They finally got smart and started using drones like the male prisons are doing. So they have a lot of drugs coming in now, a lot of
So a
stuff
drone will
coming
drop
in.
something out on a GPS spot in the yard, and then
Yeah, and
late,
on the
probably at
rec
night, I
field.
would imagine when it's pitch black, the drone will drop something off, and then when they're let out
Mm-hmm,
into the yard, someone will go and retrieve it.
mm-hmm. Yep, out on the rec field. So, but the male prisons have been doing that for a long time. And you would think that all the prisons would be ready for it. And another stupid BOP uh, mismanagement is that they wait until stuff happens to do something about it. They should have been proactive instead of reactive, and maybe put nets over the rec field or something. But no.
So if you get caught as an inmate or even a civilian smuggling contraband, and I'm talking something, I'm not cigarettes, I'm talking drugs, cell phones, and you get caught, are you charged with a federal crime?
The civilians, they can be. I don't know if actually, yeah. Yeah, they can be because we had inmates in there for attempting to smuggle drugs into prison. So, yeah, they will be charged for it. FBI will add another charge onto them, and that'll just be added on to their current sentence. And then they also get a disciplinary code added on, as a
Right.
discipline thing. And so it adds more time onto their current sentence. So they get double whammied.
I'm guessing in your career, 25 years, you've broken up a lot of fights.
Hmm.
Have you ever been attacked?
Oh, no. No, I never did anything to disrespect them. They always respected me. I was their reentry coordinator, their disciplinary hearing officer. I was like the judge there. I was their case manager. I was the unit manager. I was a CO. I always was respectful to them. They got what they had coming. Um, I never did anything for them to attack me. If I broke up a fight, they usually stopped. I mean, I always came to work dressed nice, in a little business dress with heels on and stuff.
But that's
And as
when you
soon
were
as
a manager, not as a correction officer.
Oh yeah, no, even as a correctional officer, they liked when I was a correctional officer because I was always consistent. They knew when I was in the unit that I was going to be enforcing the rules. I was going to be doing my shakedowns. They knew I wasn't opening the door until I was supposed to. They knew they knew what was going to happen, and they liked that. Um, so my unit ran smooth. I didn't have many problems at all. It was usually out on the yard when there were fights and stuff like that. Um, Even when I was a unit manager, my units ran smooth because they knew if I was there, I wasn't going to put up with any of their stuff. And they knew that everything was going to be running smooth. You know, don't expect me to let you out on the yard when it's not open yard. Don't expect me to do this when it's not allowed. But if you needed um, something that was allowed, I was going to do it. You know, I followed exactly what they were supposed to get. And I did it fairly. I did it for everyone. So they like that. They don't mind when rules are being enforced. They just like it being consistent. And so, that was the problem that was going on was that they would get one officer coming in that would follow the rules and do that. And then the next officer would be
Right.
like, I don't care. I don't care. Go ahead. And then the next officer would come in and say, you can't do that. And they're like, but I just was doing it.
It's like a
No, blah, blah, blah,
substitute. Yeah,
and
it's
then
like a
write them up.
substitute. It's like a substitute teacher with a
Yeah.
bunch of teenagers.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden they get written up for doing it. And they're like, I just, he said I could do it. And, stuff like that. So it was it was just stuff like that would drive them nuts kind of thing.
So in a female prison, there are male correction officers, correct? Watching the females.
There's more males than females. We had a hard time getting females.
Do you
That's
think
why it
that's a
was
good
like
idea?
ridiculous. No, no. But, and I'm sure if anyone sees this, I'll get flack. The union's a lot of reasons we had problems there. Um, they not only protected all the dirty staff that were dirty, which they will say they didn't, but yeah. Um, there were a lot of posts that should have only been female for obvious reasons, like the visiting room officers, because you have to take the inmates to go to the bathroom, and we used to have to watch them go to the bathroom because a lot of contraband goes through there.
Right.
And then there was a post that I used to have, and I loved it, where we took a work crew out to Alcatraz in the Presidio every day. And it was only assigned to female officers because obviously you're out there with them all day. And then when we come back, we had to strip them out, strip search them.
Right.
Well, then the union went and said, well, that's not fair. It should be open to males too, with the visiting and with the Alcatraz post. So then male officers started getting it. And in the visiting room, who's going to take them to go to the bathroom? And who's going to strip them out? And same with the Alcatraz thing. So all this contraband was coming in, and all these problems were coming in. It's like, come on.
Well, it's a recipe. It's a recipe for disaster. I mean, I know as a cop, right, and a detective, when we locked up a female, we'd pat them down
Uh-huh.
quick in the street, cuff them up, and then before we even put them in a radio car, we would go over the radio and say, "Can we have a female cop respond to search this prisoner?" Even before we put her
Mm-hmm.
in the car. And then
Mm-hmm.
once at the station house, after we were done writing down her information at the desk, we'd get another female cop or the same female cop to bring her into the bathroom and do a more
Mm-hmm.
extensive search. But it was never at any point did the male cops really get that up close and personal with a female prisoner.
The males aren't even allowed to pat search. Only in emergency situations, and they wouldn't even do that. They can't pat search them. And there was a lot of times there would be shifts with no females on it. So
So what are you going to do?
ex- exactly. And that's why when they reassigned us, all of us, the managers to get the cultural rot out of the prison, there was a bunch of females that they were getting rid of. And it's like, really? You think that's a good management decision? We're already short females and you're getting rid of a bunch of females.
Well, it sounds like the NYPD, when they look to take corruption out of a precinct, they come in with a grenade as opposed to a scalpel.
Yeah,
And people, it's people that had nothing to do with something but work there, and like,
exactly.
we're gonna move you out to Brooklyn. It's like, but I live in upstate New York. So that's what
Exactly. Yeah.
brings me. I mean, the way you and I connected was I saw you on a 60 Minutes interview where you detailed this inappropriate behavior between staff and the inmates at your prison. Could you go into that, like how it began, what you saw, the warning signs, and you had been there for 20 something years and there were never any problems, and then slowly
Well,
but surely this thing took off.
well, I've been there 25 years and my whole time there have been problems here and there. I mean, honestly, if you got a whole thing, a whole prison full of women and when I started, it was crowded. We had up to, I think, like 1,500 inmates in there. It was crowded. And here and there, we would have staff that were having sex with inmates, doing stuff, and they would get walked out. It would be quietly done, and they get charges against them and stuff. So I can remember like maybe 4, 5 in the beginning, throughout probably the first 10 or 15 years.
Male or female?
And then, oh, all male,
So it was
all
always the
male.
male correction officers that wound up having sex with the females. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And, and we all knew about it. I would send little notes to SIS and, do what I was supposed to do. And pretty quick, they would get out, they would get them out. The whole federal government went on a hiring freeze. We couldn't hire anybody except for veterans and military. That they were the only people that we can hire. So we needed people, of course. So we started hiring a shitload of veterans and military. Active military didn't matter. So we got a bunch of them, and then we got a bunch of transfers from other prisons.
Like you said earlier, the USPs, the ones that were used to in gladiator school.
Yeah, yeah. And keep in mind, all the ones that we got from the USPs came and talked shit about Dublin. Oh, this ain't a real prison. And my answer to them was, then why are you here? You couldn't handle the USPs. So they didn't. And not only did they not do that, those are the ones that got in trouble. They were the ones that are either on administrative
Right.
leave or being sued or were convicted. So that should tell you something. Were they coming out here to shop for inmates or something? So when we started hiring those groups and having transfers, that's when the whole climate started changing. All of us homesteaders, they called us, because that was our prison that we never planned on leaving. We were like, what is going on? Like, we used to have to stand, they called main line. And that's where we all had to line up at lunchtime so the inmates could come by and ask us questions and stuff. The officers and even the managers that like transferred in would talk so shitty to the inmates, and the warden and the associate warden's captain would be standing there and not say anything. It's like, what? Are you letting them talk like this? It was like they allowed people to talk like shit to the inmates and stuff. It's like, are you kidding? And from there, it just was it was like a whole nother prison. It was like, wow. And everyone noticed it. Everyone's like, what is happening here? I mean, we've never seen anything like this. I mean, of course, you have one or two sometimes that treat the inmates like garbage, maybe in the unit or something where people can't see it, but this is out in the open. And then you tell the captain about something that happened, and he's like, "Oh, Korth, that's just them. That's just them." I have inmates coming to my office every day crying about something that this guy did, and that's just them. That's just your friend. That's why. It's like, oh my God. And then I would write things to the SIS department and nothing would get done. And then I find out, oh, it's because they're all friends. That's so it was just from there until I left. It was just, oh my Lord, ridiculous. So,
What was some of the, so the symptoms is it starts out where you're noticing all these new people are coming in, the culture is changing, they're treating the inmates shitty. That's right out in the open, and now the
yeah,
inmates are starting to
like
complain.
prisoners of war. Yeah, it was like a prisoners of war or something. No.
So okay, so now this thing is festering. Could you go into some of the things that you saw? And because all right, so I know you saw a lot of things, and I was thinking about this for the interview. Like when you're a rookie cop and you go into the street, you're starting to see things happen right in front of you because you say to yourself, did I just see that guy drop a bundle of heroin right in front of me? Or I just got out of the cat. Did I just see this guy adjust a gun in his waist? It takes
Uh-huh.
you a second to go, I got to react. I mean,
Yeah.
after 20 something years, like you said, there's the rumblings, and then now you start seeing things. How did you process that, and what did you see?
Um, well, for an example, the first guy that was in the news, I don't know if you've seen any of the news stuff. Um,
What was his position
he
here?
he was an officer,
Okay.
crazy, crazy officer. Um, he was doing a couple of inmates there, but the one inmate that was talking to the news after she was released, which it didn't sit well in my head. And I reported it to SIS, who did nothing. Um, she was supposed to come see me for something, and she didn't show up. And I thought, hmm. So I called her work detail, which was him. And I said, hey, so and so was supposed to show up for an appointment to come see me. And he's all, oh, yeah, she was with me, so, it's okay. I said, no, it's not okay. She was supposed to be here. She's supposed to be here. I could write her up. Oh, no, 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 don't write her up. She's over here with me doing some work. And I said, well, she needs to come see me at the next open movement. And so at the next open movement, he walked her over to come see me. And I'm all, why are you here? He's all, well, she works for me. I said, well, she doesn't need you to escort her.
Right.
And he stayed there the whole time. And after they left, I told the person at work with me, I said, that was weird. I said, that didn't look right. And she's all, And I said, yeah, well, I said, I'm just going to shoot a little SIS note for that because that was weird. Well, it turned out those two were in a relationship, although
The
he
correction
was,
officer and the female inmate.
yeah, but she was trying to get out of it and he was harassing her. And he was also with somebody else and he had gone through her files and told her, oh yeah, I know where your family lives, I know where your kids are, you're not going to stop seeing me. No, the officer did that to the inmate he escorted over. He
Right,
wasn't
but
going
didn't
to
you say
let
he was
her.
having sex with another one?
Oh yeah, with another inmate too.
So basically, he's using the prison as a Tinder account.
Exactly. Exactly. And then there was like this, not much longer after that, there was this huge fight in one of the units, and I was watching the video of it because I was the DHO, disciplinary hearing officer, so I like had to do all the hearings. And I'm watching this video, and just the way they wrote up the incident report was not accurate. And that same inmate came walking in the housing unit, and these two inmates jumped on her from the side. And I mean, this fight went on for like 10 minutes, and there was like 6 inmates involved with it. And they're like, it was like just a huge rumble, and the officer's just standing there doing nothing. I'm like, what is going on? Why is he not doing anything? I was like yelling at the camera. I'm like, why is he not spraying her? What the hell? And then like 10 minutes later, then the officers show up to break it up. And I'm like, oh, you need to save this video. I'm all, do not delete this video because something is not right there. And it was that one inmate he escorted and that other inmate that he was doing. Their friends jumped on that one inmate he escorted to my office. So apparently it was like a lover's spat kind of thing. And I'm like, why is nobody looking into this? So just shit like that. It was like, am I the only one that sees this stuff? Well, it's because the SIS guy wasn't doing shit. And he was the only manager not reassigned. When all of us got sent away, he was the only one that did not get reassigned, and he got a promotion.
Wasn't the chaplain involved in this too?
Yes, he worked in the same building as me. I freaking told his boss when he first started, and I emailed SIS, and I had SIS come down to check around, and nothing happened by them.
So what
He
raised you? So the chaplain gets assigned there. What raised your suspicions that was something going on with the chaplain?
Not only was he creepy, but when he first started, okay, so my office is right here. There is an office with the inmates right across from me where I can see. And they would sit in there. They worked in the chapel, but they would sit in there when they weren't doing anything. So, right when he started, he would go sit in there with the inmates, which was weird anyway. But, I thought, maybe he's just getting to know them. And so I looked over there one morning, and he had like his leg up. He had like Dockers on, but he had his leg up kind of like spread so you could see his hanging. And it's like, ugh. And so when he came out, I called him over and I said, I said, I know you're new to prisons and stuff. I said, but don't sit like that. It doesn't look appropriate. It just doesn't. Yeah, I said, ew, no. I said, it just doesn't look appropriate. He's all, why? I said, sitting like that, it just doesn't, because you can see the outline of things, and that's just how the inmates are. It doesn't look appropriate. I'm telling you. So then, like, one morning, I looked in there, and he brought, like a Jack in the Box breakfast thing in for him to eat, but he didn't eat it. He put it in the garbage can. He didn't dump it. He just placed
Right.
it in the garbage can and left. And so I'm watching the inmates, and so they get it out of the garbage can and start eating it. And so I went in there. I'm like, no, 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 and took it from them. And then I went in and I put it on his desk, and I said, don't do that. You just brought in contraband to them.
Right.
And he goes, no, I threw it away. I said, no, no, no. You may think you threw it away, but you just brought contraband into them because they were eating it. I said, don't do that. And he's all, oh. And so after he did that, I said, I did a memo to his boss because I already verbally told her, and I liked her, but she really thought her job was God, and she didn't have to do anything correctional. And so I did a memo to her again and explained her what I saw, told her she needs to watch it. and then I CC the SIS. And then after that, every day he came into work, he would go drop stuff off in his office. He would go into the bathroom, which was right outside my office, and he made a big deal about he wanted a lock put on this door. It was the employee staff door. And we're like, why? You're not supposed to have a lock on that door on the inside. I mean, none of our things have inside locks, period. But he made a big deal about it. And so every day he would go in the bathroom and he'd be in there for like 10 or 15 minutes. Mom, what the hell is he doing? And then he would go into the housing unit. Why is a chaplain going into the housing unit? You don't belong in there. Because the inmates would walk around like just got out of the shower. So
Right.
they have their bathrobes
It's
on.
their
And
house.
yeah, and you don't belong in there. And I told him one day, I said, well, what are you doing in the housing units? Because I had no problem talking, telling people or asking questions. And he said, why? I said, because chaplains don't go in the housing unit. It
Right.
doesn't look good. He's all, well, I prefer to do my chaplaincy inside places. And I said, okay, well, I'm just telling you it doesn't look great. So I had SIS come and check that bathroom to see were there holes in there? Because the girls' bathroom, inmate bathroom, was right next to it. Well, he was whacking off in there. That's what he was doing. Just like the warden was in his bathroom every morning, we found out during the trial. And my office was right outside that door, too.
So what was the chaplain charged with?
He was convicted. Yeah, I think he got 6 or 7 years. And he got convicted for not even the inmate I'm pretty sure he was doing. They didn't even get him with everything. They, the prosecutors, did a really half-assed job. I think they just wanted to prove that the staff were doing these things, but they didn't really want to press it because they were all DOJ. They're in the same family.
In total, how many correction officers or staff members were charged with crimes and convicted,
7.
including the warden?
The warden, oh my God, the warden must have thought we were stupid, stupid, stupid. I sat
Where did he
through,
come from? Did he come from a male
he's,
facility? Like, what was his
oh
story
yeah,
before he
yeah,
got
yeah.
there?
He's been around. He's been around. He's like old school,
So he's got to have like
which
20
is
years
sad.
in, right? I mean, he'd have to have like 20
Longer
years
than
in.
that. He's been
Okay, so
around longer
long
than
enough to
that.
know
And the
better is
sad,
what I'm saying.
oh yeah. See, the sad thing is he was a great warden. I mean, he was a great manager. He he and the SIS were like that.
What
And
could you
that's
explain what SIS is? Because you've
oh,
said it a bunch of times. But
special investigative service.
okay,
So him and the lieutenant were like that, which explains a lot. And so the warden, and which everyone was just devastated when they heard about him because anyway, he would come in every morning and go in his bathroom. And at that time, this was during COVID and everything. So I was the planning section chief or planning section leader, which is a crisis management team because we were on lockdown and all that stuff. So I was up in that area. So every morning I was up there and I actually would make fun of him about, ooh, why you always go to the bathroom? And it turns out from the trial that he would go in there every morning, go whack off, and then he would go on his walk. He would walk around the institution, which he liked to walk. He's one of the wardens that likes to walk around. Well, he would walk around and he would take pictures of some inmates naked on his government phone. I can't believe he was so stupid. And
Yeah, because that's their phone.
yeah, that's why I couldn't believe he was so stupid.
You
And
got a problem.
so, yeah. And so there was one inmate in particular, which I just couldn't believe it was that one. But she would always be up in our area, the warden's office area, because she'd be doing renovations and remodeling things and cleaning. Anytime something needed to be done up there, he would always call for this inmate. And he would always say, "Oh, let me go walk. I'll get her. I want to go for a walk." And so during one of those walks or when he was doing rounds or something, she was bent over on the bed and he took her picture naked. And so his explanation for that was that he accidentally took her picture when he was doing rounds. His finger accidentally hit the phone. And when he said that in the courtroom, I went, "Ah." And even the reporters just went, "Jesus." And the jury's like, "What?"
He took
And
the
I mean, you
stand.
could hear it.
He took the stand in his own defense.
Uh, yes, he did. Yes.
So
Now
that
I'm
means
thinking, I
so.
have to think back.
Yeah. So I
He's,
mean, for people that don't know, like if you take the stand, if you know, you can be cross examined. That's like most defendants, the bag or the person charged with the crime, they often let the attorney do the talking for them because once you take the stand and your defense attorney leads you through this wonderful thing that you didn't do it, the prosecution gets to go up and go, "Not so fast, my friend," and boom, 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 boom. That's
yes.
why a lot of times people, even if they're innocent, are not going to testify because they don't want to be made a fool. They're not professional witnesses. They know they'll be made a fool out of by a savvy prosecutor. So he took the
Yes, he
stand.
did. Cause we were all betting on if he was going to take the stand or not, because nobody was on, they didn't have anyone for his side. And so we're like, is he going to take the stand? I bet not. And he did. That's right. God, it
It's a
seems so
ballsy
long
move.
ago. Uh-huh.
That's a very ballsy move, and especially with his, it's a ridiculous thing that I took a picture of a female inmate because my phone. So that would have meant that the camera was on, it was in a position, and
Exactly.
then come on. I mean that's it's so not plausible. He should have just taken a plea bargain. I mean, because you know how
He
it
should
goes
have.
with. Well, you know how it goes. I mean, working in the federal system, the feds give you an offer, and if you don't take it and you're convicted, they're going to drive a nail through your heart. So that's why 95% of the time people flip, give something up, or they take that plea right out of the gate because they know the judge and the prosecution takes that very personally that you wasted the government's time taking this to trial. So for him, what
Yeah.
did he ultimately, how much time did the warden get?
Yeah, I think he got about 7 years too. He should have
7.
gotten more. Yeah. He should have gotten, really because they're sex crimes, they should have gotten it consecutive, not concurrent. They should have
Right.
gotten it consecutive because we had the females that were sex offenders in our prison, they all got consecutive time. Finish it and then you start your next. You start your next. So they all got off so easy, all of them. So and even the judge was not happy with how the prosecution
Handle
did
it.
their cases. I mean, the pre-sentence report that was done for the warden, they they interviewed like three or four other offender or other victims and that were far worse than the ones that were testifying in court. And the judge on the sentencing day, the judge said, she said to the prosecutors, "I'll give you time to do these ones in the pre-sentence report." And the prosecution said, "Oh, we'll waive that." So if he had not taken the stand, I think that he could have won because they were doing a terrible job prosecuting. And I just kept telling the reporter that I talked to a lot. I said, and even she agreed. I'm like, They're blowing it. They are so weak. I just wanted to get up there. Oh my God. First of all, use your big girl voice. They're like, so, oh my God. Ask him this. Of course, there were no cameras. There were to ask him if there was a camera there, because he was saying part of it was in the visiting room. Why would I do that in the visiting room where there are cameras? Because they don't work, and you know they don't work. Get the guy in here with the camera map.
What was the worst thing you saw during this scandal?
Oh God, everything, everything. The worst thing, and I don't want it to be about me. The worst thing is how they treated me and other staff, and now the rest of the staff of Dublin knows what I'm talking about, because now they're all whining and crying. How the BOP treated all of us like they treat the inmates. Now we know how it feels, how they treat the inmates when the inmates ask for something, or when they're when due process, or when they're entitled to something legally, and they just kind of like falsify shit, or they say, oh no, so and so, they make up stuff, inmate so and so did this on this day, and she's not entitled to this, and she was a bad worker, and blah, blah, blah. And they just like treat you like garbage, like you didn't do anything, like you're garbage, when it's not true. That's how they treat the inmates. Well, now that's how they're treating me. And now the staff, because they closed down Dublin, they closed it. So now these staff that worked at Dublin got no notice that they're closing Dublin. They had a week to get rid of all the inmates. So
So they closed the
now they're in,
facility and just reassigned
yeah,
everybody, the inmates, and
yeah,
that's how they handled it.
all the inmates are gone,
Well,
and
it wasn't the
the
building
staff.
that caused. It wasn't the building that caused the problem. It was the staff that caused the problem.
Well, it was not. It's just a few of the staff.
Well,
It's
yeah.
really the it's really the management. And I knew this was going to happen. The judge put a special master in charge to oversee Dublin, and I knew once they did that, they would close, because they are never going to let an outsider go in and watch them. And so um,
It's better to close it
they
down and move on
that's
than
right.
have someone
That's
look
right.
over their shoulder.
Yep. So 11 days later, on a Sunday, they decided, oh, we're going to close Dublin, and by Friday of this week, every inmate's going to be gone, and we don't know what we're going to do with the staff. So right now, the staff still goes to work, but they have no idea what's going to happen to them. And they're on the news whining, and I'm like, why are you surprised? Should have seen it coming. You know, they're doing to you exactly what they did to us. Why are you surprised? So,
How long were you reporting this behavior until they took you seriously?
um, well, they never took it seriously. I had to go outside to OIG,
What's
even
that?
though Office of Inspector General, even though they insist that's not why they did anything. Um, the reason, so I went to OIG like in the beginning of January, 2022, because I was just tired of all of it, with the COVID stuff, with the abuse stuff. They were having me do things that I was like, oh, no, this is not policy. This is not, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing this shit. And then coincidentally, right after that, like beginning of February, they had a central office task force come out. And that's, and what do you call it? regional office task force. And that's when they did the walkthrough and determined that my department sucked and that I was having all these problems. Yet they didn't know about that OIG report. Nobody told them. Really? That's funny because people that worked at Dublin work in OIG. So, really, they didn't tell you that? I don't believe you. And so, all of
So
a
you weren't
sudden,
supported. You weren't supported for being a whistleblower, is what you're saying.
oh, no, no, no. Yeah. Yeah. And
Did anybody
so,
try? Did anybody try pulling you to the side and going, Tess? You've been here a long time. You sure you're
no,
seeing what you're seeing? No, no one tried. Like,
no,
okay, trying
no.
like
As a
to
matter of fact, no, as a matter of fact, all the people that said I was off, I was doing a bad job and stuff, the last time they were out, which was in October, they were saying what a great job I do. I'm always so professional, blah, blah. We can always count on Tess, yet in what, 5 months later, I'm doing a terrible job. My unit's failing, blah, blah. Okay. And so they came through. They always talk to the select inmates. They pick what staff to talk to. They pick which inmates to talk to, and they go on their little dog and pony tour. They have their route that they go through. So the union and I worked together, and we got some of the politicians to come through because we wanted my inmates, to be heard of what was really going on. And who do we have? Jackie Spear. We had her come in, and a couple of other ones. And I kind of, in the central office, was still out here in the regional office, and I commandeered their little tour. And she already knew that she wanted to see the COVID quarantine because all of a sudden they made my unit the COVID quarantine unit. And she said she wanted to see my unit only. And she came in, and no inmates were allowed to talk to him. So I made sure my inmates were in the housing unit downstairs waiting. And as soon as they walked in, I told her there are inmates that want to talk to her. And she said, "Oh, absolutely." So they were bombarded with inmates that told them about the sexual abuse, how they were treated with the COVID, about being locked down for 2 months without anything, um, all the stuff. So that was pretty much how the inmates got their word out because they would not have gotten it out any other way. So then she had a press conference, and that's when it was out on the news.
So you got the ball rolling with this pretty much. Were you asked to test? Were you called to testify in any of these trials?
Hmm. No, no, not.
The reason I ask is, I mean, with the trial, a prosecutor tells a story. They paint a picture of how it began. So
Hmm.
they didn't. You were never called to explain. I saw this, 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 and this is why I red flags. And they never asked you.
No, because well, I've talked to them like before hearings and stuff like that. I've talked to them,
Oh,
but
okay.
because I've never with my eyes
Oh, I
seen them
understand.
having
Okay, okay. That
sex.
fair
Yeah.
enough.
And I've talked to Congress, like the congressional aides and stuff, but they're too much into, did you actually see them
Right.
having sex? Well, no, they're not going to do it right there in front of
And
me.
it's fast.
Yeah. So,
The one thing I found fascinating, I watched that 60 Minutes interview with you and the director. What I found fascinating was they've had six directors of the Bureau of Prisons in 6 years. I mean, you've been there for 25 years. Why do you think
mm,
there's such a turnover at the top of that organization?
a few of them were temporary anyway. So they were just temporary.
Is it that no one
Um,
wants that job, or is it the electric chair? Once you get that job, you're in a no-win situation, and I'm just kind of curious that a job with that kind of power, managing that many people across the entire United States, how they can't get somebody in there.
I don't know. I mean, when I first started, they stayed for a while. Our directors stayed for a while and I liked them. I mean, we had a female when I started, which I thought was cool. I'm like, hey, look, we have a female. I thought she did a great job. And then we had another guy after that for a while. And then after that, we started going through them pretty quick. But I don't know. Really, I think it should be one of those appointed things, like that where they have to go through hearings and stuff. It's not. If it,
Oh, okay.
I
So
don't know
they don't
who
get
makes.
confirmed.
No, no, I think just the DOJ guy determines who it is.
Okay,
But
so but
this
after all
last
this, I'm sorry, yeah, but after all this comes down, right? Does
uh,
anybody from the higher ups of Bureau of Prisons, including the director or someone underneath her, did anyone come to you with 25 years experience and say, what can we do to make this better?
oh God, they would never admit that they're wrong. Do you know there was a study that came out? They started it the month after I retired and they released it, I think November or December of 22 on female offenders and how to prevent abuse and stuff like that. Every single thing they found is the stuff that I've been saying for years. And I'm thinking, you could have saved so much money and just asked me. I've been working there 25 years. I have my master's degree. My project was in gender specific release programming, which was way before you guys even thought about that. You could have just asked me, like, okay,
Okay. So do you think this
the,
kind of behavior is rampant through the Bureau of Prisons,
yes,
male and
all the
female?
female prisons. I don't know about the male, but female, definitely. They're all like this. And now they just spread it. They just spread all these victims all over the place.
And I watched another documentary on the BOP, and it said the yearly budget is $8.5 million for 123 facilities. And a lot of these places are falling apart. They're crumbling.
Yeah.
I get that you can't get staff. I understand that. But a lot of these facilities are crumbling. Where does the money go?
Let me tell you where the money goes. Here we go. I've been waiting for this
I'm glad I
because
asked you a good question.
the people that are in charge are stupid. They just move up. These are not educated people because if they thought about it, we're not short staffed. Close some of these freaking prisons and consolidate, and then you wouldn't be short staffed. There are more prisons than we need. Some of these prisons are they don't have a lot of inmates in it. They build these prisons out in the middle of nowhere. But who wants to work there? How are they going to get people there? So look at some of these prisons, the newer ones that they built, use those, close the ones that are old and falling apart, and consolidate the ones that they need. And they won't be short staffed. And here's another thing the director has like a secretary, and there's a secretary for that secretary, and then there's like an assistant secretary. I mean, look at all these stupid jobs that they have, administrative jobs in the central office, in the regional offices. Why do they need like three deputies and then secretaries for the deputies? And who the hell are they? Cut that crap. That's a lot of the budget. And regional offices, they don't need regional offices. Let them do it the central office. All they do is run reports that the central office runs and sends to the regions to send to the prisons.
You know, you answered. I had a follow up question, but you've already answered it because I said if I could make Tess Korth director of Bureau of Prisons, what would she do?
The
And
shit
you
would
just
run smooth
that shit would run smooth.
because I would hold people accountable too. And I'd be walking through prisons all the time.
Tess, I got one word for you.
Unannounced.
Tess, I got one.
Unannounced.
Tess, I got one
Okay.
word for you. Decaf.
No decaf.
So the whole no, me neither. It's like methadone. So the whole thing comes down, right? They start they come, they lock up these people.
I don't,
So Tess, after everything comes down, what happens to you?
well, it depends on who you're asking.
Well, I'm asking
The
Tess Korth.
well, in my education, I applied my education in reading the letter that I got. It said I had 6 weeks to report to Oregon. Otherwise, if I didn't, I would be disciplined up to termination if I didn't report there by then, which in my mind, that's a threat. It says that I can be terminated if I didn't report there. They didn't think that was a threat. And so I did. So I said, I'm sorry, I am not going up to Oregon. I'm not uprooting my family. My husband is not closing his business down. I'm retiring.
So your reward for exposing corruption is, and you live in Northern California after 25
Mhm.
years. You know what? We're reassigning you to Oregon. You got 6 weeks to find a house and everything
Yeah,
else. So you
yeah,
decided to go into retirement.
yeah. And when I took them to the MSPB board, the merits and special whatever, I don't know, that about that. I was told, even though the regional personnel lady was in there, that it was my place to ask if there were any options. They said, "Well, why didn't you ask for help, assistance?" I didn't know I was allowed to do that. I didn't know. So, yeah, they would have helped me get a different location.
Well,
So,
I think you probably wouldn't have gotten a choice assignment in Oregon.
which the place in Oregon was having inmate uprisings and riots and all
Yeah,
that stuff, and was under control by the same guy that gave that came to our prison.
yeah, yeah.
So,
That's not a good fit. Now I'm look.
no.
I was reading your resume. Did I also read this correctly that you worked at San Quentin Prison?
Oh wait, it wasn't San Quentin. I was supposed to go to San Quentin, but they put me over in uh Vacaville, Vacaville Medical Center.
And how was that?
It's a state prison. It's still, let me tell you, I don't know what it is when people, politicians say reform or restorative justice, they just think give the inmates the keys and let let it roll. I was in there 1 month exactly. I was a program director for a drug program. So I was a contractor inside there. Ridiculous. I'm thinking, oh, it's going to be a state prison. Hardcore. It's going to be hardcore security. They let, they've already let out all like the minor criminals, like non-violent criminals. So consider everyone in there murderers, rapists, violent. They're all those kind of inmates. I walk in, I check in at the front, I sign, I get my pass, and I there's a metal detector. So I said, "You need me to go through that?" "Oh no, go." "Go." I said, "You need to look in my bags or anything?" "No, you're good." Okay. They don't check your bags. They don't check, you don't go through metal detectors, nothing. So then I go in, I get my chips, they give me my keys. I go in, I walk in, inmates all over the place, just doing whatever. Lady on her cell phone. Is that lady on a cell phone? Yeah,
Convict?
no. And I'm this person. Yeah, you let cell phones in the prison?
Oh, well.
Yeah. Are you kidding me? Yeah, they're going to start letting the officers have them pretty soon. Do you really? Yeah, there's one prison that's going to start letting the inmates have them. What? Do you know what they can do with? Oh my God. And so it was ridiculous. And then after this, I was like, I'm out. The inmates, they get time off for the drug program. So they get early release. Everyone has to be in there. It's not voluntary, which I think is ridiculous. They can show up if they want or not, which I told them, no, no, no. If you're getting time off and coming back to my community, you're going to show up for the program and participate. So the prison people, that ones that actually work for the prison, said, we can't force them to be here. Why can't you force them to be here? You force them to be in the program because they have rights. We can't just force them to be here. I'm out. I'm like, I am not signing my name on this paperwork to let people out. I'm sorry.
All right. So now that we're done with the Department of Corrections, what's next for Tess Korth?
I don't know.
You're gonna open a
I
coffee
don't know.
shop, or
I don't know. I can't even get a coffee shop job. I'm too old. I have a master's degree, a paralegal degree, so many degrees, but I can't get a job. I'm too old.
so we're not gonna run a coffee shop. So Tess, where can people get a hold of you? Because I know you do speaking engagements and corporate events. Where can people get a hold of you?
My email,
And your email is
Tess, I know I have a list, so it's a little hard. TES as in Sam, S as in Sam, KORT as in Tom, H at gmail.com.
Tess. I really want to thank you. I think you're a brave woman for A, taking that job, B, exposing the corruption there. And I really wish you luck with the next chapter of your life. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you.
And I want to thank everyone for tuning in, especially my friends in Riverview, Florida, the Bronx, New York, East Islip, Long Island, NORAD, Aruba. Yeah, Aruba listens to this show. Cicero, Illinois, home to the late, great Al Capone. If you work in law enforcement or have an interesting criminal background and would like to be a guest on the show, please drop me a note on Twitter or Instagram at VicFerrari50. And again, if you enjoy the content, check out my Amazon author page. Type in my name, Vic Ferrari Like the Car, where you can preview all my NYPD books for free. Thank you again, and I'll see you guys next week.